It's China Manufacturing Decoded, the podcast from Sofeast. Adrian here, and Renaud's with me. Hi, Renaud.
Hey there. Yeah, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. And this is kind of a special episode. I think this is the first episode we've recorded when we are both in China. Episode 168, and I finally made it to China post-COVID. And unfortunately, we're not together in the same room. We have been recently, but I'm currently in Huizhou. Look it up on a map, guys. It's a small city. Well, I say small. I mean, it's
not that small. Not that small.
Yes.
Yeah, by Chinese standard, maybe.
Relatively small city by Chinese standards. Probably about an hour or so northeast of Shenzhen. And I originally came into Hong Kong, met up with yourself, went to Shenzhen. I've been into the Sofeast office, been to Agillion, and seen all of our assembly going on, testing laboratory, RSQ labs as well. So definitely some cool content coming and some images and videos of all of that was going on. So now would seem an appropriate time to probably talk a little bit about some of the changes in mainland China from before to after COVID. I think can we call now post-COVID? We can say post-COVID now, right?
Yeah. In China, there's definitely a during and a post, and it's quite different. Yeah, I think we can say we're in the recovery. Let's say this way. China very much is in recovery. The cities and local governments have been sort of bled to death by all the extra expenses, all the tests for free, all the people they had to hire, and so on and so forth. And real estate is going down, which is a very big deal in China, because where can people actually invest their money, legally? There's only real estate and some other alternatives that are not very attractive, and real estate kind of always went up for a long time, so it attracted a lot of investment, and now it's going down. So it's a big problem for households. It's a big problem also for the banks, obviously, that are kind of suddenly a bit over leveraged, and people paying the mortgages maybe they cannot afford, and all the collateral in real estate is losing money, and so on. It's a bit and export numbers, and beyond the numbers, really the situation on the ground, you can see with the manufacturing facilities, they are struggling. It's a soft, the soft demand and correspondingly soft supply. It's tough. I mean, and we see it in the factories we work a lot with, let's say in, Dongguan and Shenzhen area, that we talk to the most. Well, they're very, very clear, it's not fun. It's not fun. And this year is not a good year. And sort of all the Chinese people already figured out, 2023, not a good year, right? So it's recovery or worse, right? Recovery is the optimistic way of looking at it, which means that pretty soon it's going to be okay. Let's see, because there's a lot of headwinds, with geopolitics and so on. But we're going to go into that in this episode. So what are we talking about today?
There are a number of things that we can see are perhaps a little bit different from before. I mean, if you're listening and you've been to China before to visit, your suppliers, to do some sourcing, to do whatever, you're probably familiar with China pre-COVID. Not many people came in during COVID. There's probably a relief, to be honest, because it was, you did. It was pretty difficult for many, many reasons, which I'm sure everybody's heard about, China's zero COVID and all of that. And by the way, if you are visiting, you don't need to wear masks. You don't need to, do a lot, really. There is a COVID declaration at the border, which, by the way, you should probably do in advance, just in case you don't have internet at the border, which was an issue that I experienced because I didn't have a local SIM card yet. So I filled it in when I was still in Hong Kong, got the QR code, screenshotted it on my phone, and then you just scan it as you're going through the border into China. And it's just a self-declaration to basically say, I don't have COVID, basically. I'll leave a link to it in the show notes, just in case you are visiting soon. Definitely be prepared for that. But other than that, the whole COVID thing is pretty much gone away. A lot of people still wear masks, but you don't have to. But there's no real restrictions, so we can put COVID to bed. In terms of changes, you've made quite a number of notes about some of the observations that you've seen in recent times, and I'll respond to those as well with some of my own thoughts. And number one on the list, far fewer foreigners around.
Right. So that's really one thing. So this list is really, if you go to China now, soon, and you are used to the China of 2015, 2019, there's going to be a few key stark differences, that are going to jump at you, right? And the first one is in the major cities, much fewer foreigners. Okay.
Yeah.
In Shenzhen, in downtown or in Shekou, or there are some places you could see, there were some eateries, some bars and so on. Like you could see a lot of foreigners. Well, now you walk around and you see a foreigner over there, and you're like, hey, do I know this guy? No, I don't know. Okay, and you keep walking for a while and you don't see any of them, right?
No.
So it's of course, if you go to the popular Hilton hotels and Marriott and so on, that were already popular before with foreigners, you will see obviously a much higher concentration. But when you really go out where to the places where, let's say, the foreigners tended to leave, oh wow, he's been hollowed out. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know, 90% of them left or something. I don't know. I don't have any numbers of that. People tell me it's the same thing in places like Shanghai and Suzhou and Beijing and so on. So, ouch, and I'm sure it's the same in Guangzhou. So that's the thing. So with fewer foreigners, obviously the restaurants and bars that were targeting primarily the expat community have been struggling, and a lot of them have been closing, right? So,
they've gone, a lot of them.
Yeah, they're gone. And like, for example, something that struck me, the Shenzhen office in Shenzhen is, the Sofeast office in Shenzhen is in Huaqiangbei, and if you walk, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes, there's a Subway, a restaurant like the fast food chain. And sometimes when you're in a hurry, you want something simple, it's quick, it's convenient, you know exactly what you get, right? And now the overhead menu is only in Chinese, and it's like, okay, well, I know exactly what to say, Bui Yan Chong and Bui this and that, but okay, I know what to say because I've told them like 5,000 times over the past 15 years. But I was like, interesting, I can't even point to something and say it and read the name in English. Okay, so that says something, right? So there's this kind of movement back to like just Chinese, right? That you observe in some places.
I have a good one as well, because I went to the Walmart supermarket and I wanted to buy some stuff. I'm not particularly wedded to getting Western things in China, but on this occasion, I thought this does need to be imported. Walmart used to have a big imported section of lots of different brands and tins of stuff and whatever, completely gone.
Ouch. Yeah. You're talking about the big Walmart in Shekou, the first one that was established in China?
No, not that one.
Another one. Okay.
Legendary Walmart. Used to live just down the road from there, but but a different one. But still, I mean, it stands. And so I think what you're talking about broadly, there does seem to be a move away from sort of Western stuff and foreign people for sure.
Yeah, right. I mean, that brings us to another one, is the electric vehicles, right? So in the big cities, like, again, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Shanghai, Beijing, and some other, big cities, if you live in the downtown area, it's nearly impossible now to buy an internal combustion engine vehicle, right? The way they set up the incentives makes it pretty obvious for you, okay, you're going to buy an electric vehicle, right? So
Mm.
when you are in downtown, for example, Shenzhen, you, now most of the cars you see are electric vehicles, right?
Oh,
I'm sure you notice, right?
yeah. Oh, I would go as far as to say it could be up, around maybe like 80% or more on the roads
Mm,
in downtown Shenzhen.
right,
And that's a very
right.
striking difference. And you can tell
Yeah.
because an ICE car has a blue number plate, which is like a standard Chinese
Mm,
number plate. And the EVs have a green number plate. And you
mm,
don't see a lot of blue number plates now. Yeah, you get the odd
right.
BMW or Benz rolling around, which is, or a Porsche which are still
Hmm.
combustion engines. But yes, and the majority of these cars, as you've pointed out, they're Chinese brands. And I mean, as somebody that
Right.
hasn't been to China for, sort of like, I don't know, 3.5, 4 years, I have not ever seen these cars in my life. I don't know what they are. It's not just
Right.
Teslas. Teslas are incredibly popular, actually, for
Mm,
obvious reasons, because they're being made here. But the
mm,
Chinese ones, yeah, there's an enormous, and some of them are small, some of them are huge, sort of like Cadillac
mm,
Escalade-sized SUVs. They have an entire ecosystem of EVs, which all look pretty high tech, which probably a lot of the listeners
mm.
have never seen or heard about.
Right. So if you go back about what, 5 years,
Mm.
the high end of the market, yeah, of course you had Mercedes-Benz, BMW, you know, you had a lot of Buick and Cadillac kind of things from GM, and then you also had the
Yeah.
Audi, right? And some like some higher end Volkswagen. And
Hmm.
that these two big companies, Volkswagen and GM,
Mm.
were really owning, a big chunk of that market, right? And
Yes.
now
Yeah.
it seems like what is cool is totally different,
Oh yeah,
right?
those are gone. You hardly see you don't see a lot of Western brands. You don't see a lot of VWs, Fords, GMs around. You see the odd one, but not as
Mm.
common. Here in Huizhou, definitely more, but still a lot of EVs on the road as well.
Right, right. I think on average, from what I read, the latest statistics in China, about 50% of the new cars that are getting like sold are EVs. But then,
Wow.
as we mentioned, in the downtown of large cities, yeah, it's probably 80%, 90%, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, and yeah, again, no logic, huge EVs. I mean, this has nothing to do with protecting the environment or whatever, but it is a good way for them to sort
Mm.
of clean up the air in the big
Yeah.
cities, right? Because remember around 2015, 2016, like that was a real big, actually, it was a big political problem for the government. Air quality became a very high level kind of concern for a lot of Chinese people.
Mm.
So this is their way of saying, hey, let's clean things up. And at the same time, well, this is going to be, these are new technologies and everything. Let's develop new brands. Let's become number one, around
Mm.
batteries and around a lot of these,
Absolutely.
these technologies. Let's, let's, uh, issue, how to say, get a lot of patents for a lot of different innovations and everything. Let's make
Mm.
ourselves like totally indispensable. Let's do the processing of 80%, 90% of the lithium in the world and so on and so forth, right? So they saw it as an enormous opportunity also
Mm.
to position themselves. It's directly coming from Made in China 2025 and the subsequent policies. I mean,
Mm.
it's pretty clear, and it's been an enormous success for them. And now all the other car brands all around the world are thinking, wow, well, now we're selling much less in China, and
Mm.
the future is pretty bleak because
Mm.
they tend to like all these new brands that are kind of cool, and okay, Tesla is doing well, but they're also going to suffer more and more just because the competition is going to be the typical Chinese, cutthroat competition because of an enormous amount of oversupply. Uh,
Oh,
and
no doubt.
and all the other countries are kind of worried. Okay, they're gonna, we're gonna have to rely on them, and what do we
Mm.
do?
Mm.
They're going to get our market share over time. This is really bad.
Mm.
So enormous changes that are very, very visible in China. and that are really getting a lot of people in that industry quite worried, right? Something related to electric vehicle cars is all the e-bikes.
Hmm.
So I'm sure you remember because both of them were living in Shenzhen for years. And let's say 5, 10 years ago, the e-bikes were totally forbidden in downtown Shenzhen, in a wide
Mm,
area of Shenzhen, right? And
mm.
like the police was standing by the side of the road and like stopping them and they really cleaned it up. So what about now? What did you see?
Yeah, well, they're definitely not banned anymore because there's millions
Right.
around. So I think it probably goes in parallel with a lot of the deliveries that are going on. For the e-bikes or e-scooters, I mean, one, they're really cheap. You can buy them for about 2,000 RMB, which is, well, I don't know, it's probably about 200
Mm,
bucks, right? That is super cheap for a form of transportation, right? Secondly, there's been a boom in delivery apps in China, as there has in the West as well.
mm,
Probably during lockdown as well, all the deliveries were still going on, and everybody in China was buying stuff and getting it delivered the
yeah,
same as they were in the West. So I think that there's a lot more delivery people going around all the time. And yeah, you can't walk down the street in Shenzhen without being nearly run over by multiple e-bike delivery drivers. And
right.
they're
They go
everywhere.
everywhere.
So,
Yeah,
oh yeah.
on the flyover, on the on the pedestrian area, everywhere,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. There's no,
they go
yeah,
fast
there's,
sometimes.
yeah, they do, they
Right,
do, they do.
terrible. What about all the bikes for rent? You remember the what is it,
Yeah.
Mobike and Ofo and this kind of thing?
Hmm.
They're way down.
There's still a lot though that they are kind of back as well. I think a lot of people are using them because outside of the metro, if you're near a busy metro station, actually where I stayed in Shenzhen happens
Hmm.
to be near a really busy sort of office area. So in a
Mm.
morning, the metro was just wow, just millions of people, way more people than I'm used to seeing in my existence in quaint little England. And so all of these people, they want to jump on these hire bikes and then just zip off to the office, which is maybe, I don't know, a kilometer down the road or whatever. So there's a lot. So when you add up all of these bikes, and we're talking pedal bikes here, which you just scan a QR code and it
Mm.
unlocks and off you go or whatever, right? And I don't even know what it's like 1.5 RMB or something.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Which
Yeah,
is not expensive. They're all piled up next to the metro station. Then you've got all of the e-bikes piled up next to the metro station. So when you're
yeah,
trying to walk into the metro, which by the way is a great way to get around Shenzhen, and I guess we'll get onto that a little bit.
yeah.
Um, you got to sort of like the Baoans who are like the sort of like security guards who are controlling things in a local area. They'll they'll move all of the bikes to make paths, so you're winding your way through these big seas of e-bikes and scooters and push bikes to get into the metro station. And yeah, there's a lot around, and there was this sort of like meme where you saw big piles of bikes where people have just thrown them or bikes left in very random areas, and it's just like, what? Why have they ridden there, and why have they left a bike there, sort of, up that tree or whatever? And yeah, still see that around. So yeah, the bikes are still around, and they're still being used a lot.
Yeah, yeah, oh, absolutely. Did you, so we're talking about traveling. Did you travel
Hmm.
around by train?
No,
You didn't have to take the train.
I haven't taken the train yet. I may be taking one of the ultra high speed network at some point in the next sort of couple of 3 weeks. So
I got you.
that'll be interesting. Yeah, Gautier, but I haven't
Right.
done it yet. I got around mainly on the metro in Shenzhen, and you're gonna love this, but in Huizhou, just take the bus. Good old bus.
Yeah, right, right. Well, actually, yeah, talk about the metro. They have these, I don't know, 5-year plans, 10-year plans, I don't know.
Mm,
But they've really, the metro in Shenzhen, I checked, only started in '04.
hmm.
And I remember when it was just going Lowu, Lowu to Window of the World.
Yes,
And then there was this other line, whatever, the red line, the line 4, I think,
yes.
going up. It was just going 2 or 4 stations. Okay, at the
Yeah,
beginning,
it's just a few
that's what they
stations. Yeah,
opened,
yeah, I remember. I
right?
remember when it was like that.
Right, and then they added, and there was the Universiade or whatever they called it in
Yeah,
2010 or 2011. Pop,
yeah.
they opened a bunch of stations just before that. It's kind of
Mm,
it's not the Asian Games, it's not the Olympics. Obviously, it's like a I don't know third or fourth rate kind of international sports competition event. But they kind of tried to make it a big deal because
mm.
Guangzhou had the Asian Games, and and Beijing obviously had the Olympics in '08. So it's funny. A lot of things opened just before that.
Mm.
And then it just kept opening and kept opening more and more. And you have the airport line, right? Line 11
Yeah.
goes all the way from the center of Shenzhen in Futian all the way to the limit with Dongguan. So it's going to connect with Dongguan Metro soon. Dongguan's been developing the metro. Obviously Guangzhou also has a pretty big network, pretty well connected with Foshan. Goes
Mm.
down to now actually another one of our offices in Chengdu is actually now less than 10 minutes walk away from a metro station.
Mm.
Wow, okay. So they just keep going, right? I don't even know if this slowed down with COVID. It
I don't know.
might actually have been accelerated. Like let's get more people employed or something. I don't know, but it's they just keep going. So if you take a break for 3 or 4 years and you come back, it's kind of
Mm.
overwhelming, right?
Oh, it's yeah,
Um,
it's incredibly broad now. The Shenzhen Metro is impressive, and let's not forget that it links directly to the Hong Kong Metro, which I guess that's not new, but does make it convenient, and also it does link kind of to the high-speed rail network all the way
oh yeah,
from Guangzhou and beyond that goes all the way through into Shenzhen and then down into Hong Kong as well.
yeah. So soon, I mean, this Greater Bay Area is going to be all an enormous network of
Mm,
metro stations, light rails. In Dongguan, I saw they've been building light rail close to Ajilian, and obviously like the old style, the old bullet train that was
mm,
going from Hong to Guangzhou East and so on, and the Gaotie, the high speed train. It's they're actually pretty close to completion of that. It's amazing now. Just with the metro, you'll be able to go all the way up, Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Dongguan, Guangzhou, Foshan,
mm.
and then down, I'm not sure, but certainly the same thing has to happen with Zhongshan and
Mm.
Zhuhai, right? Plus the new
Yeah.
bridge, more bridges and tunnels across the bay. And it's just
Mm,
crazy. The speed and the scale is really astounding.
mm,
And it's funny because one of the places where I lived in Shenzhen for 7 years, I think,
mhm,
was in Gangxia, okay, in pretty much the center of Shenzhen in Futian. They were so busy on Chaitanlu and they were moving a bridge, like they had this huge road, like 4 lanes or 5 lanes on each side. They moved the bridge and they were doing a lot of construction and then it was never ending, never ending. I was wondering what's going on here, you know. And right now, this is Gangxia Bay, okay, the Gangxia North Station. It's got four
mm,
lines there, and it's sort of an architectural beauty with a huge what they call the
mm,
eye, an opening on top, so you have some sunlight and so on. Extremely busy, obviously with 4 stations. It was like, oh,
mm,
okay, that's what they had in mind, So sometimes you're wondering, and it was the same with the Futian Gaotie station, the high-speed train station, because they kept
mm,
doing things and like stopping and restarting, and what are they doing there? And then they opened it up, and it was like, oh, that's a huge underground train station. Okay, got it. All right.
mm,
So it does take years, but they are planning ahead. So what have they planned for the next 5 years? I don't know, but it's one of these things. It's really fascinating. Really
mm.
fascinating.
Oh, no
Um,
doubt, no doubt. All of the major cities in the PRD are, or the Greater Bay Area, are going to be linked. Absolutely, no doubt. So
yeah,
you could
right.
probably go from Hong Kong to to Zhuhai underground maybe or something crazy like that. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, from an I'm visiting Shenzhen soon perspective, totally you want to be using the metro. It's just so easy to get around. You don't really need to take a taxi that much in the city now, unless you
Mm,
want to. It's very easy. And I know that we were talking about Some things are only in Chinese. I would say for foreigners to use the metro, as long as you know which station you're meant to be going to, there's
Yeah.
still English writing and whatever, so it's definitely accessible. Probably worth buying a Shenzhen card, which is called a Shenzhen Tong, and it's like a
Mm.
metro card. You just put some money on it. You can do it in the station at the booth with a human if you want, or machines, and just throw a bit of cash on. It's really cheap as well. So yeah, it's an impressive MTR network.
Right. Then, yeah, two more points about transportation, and then we move to other points. But
Yeah.
okay, a good one and a bad one. All right, about the high-speed train network that obviously visitors often have to take, right? But the good point is that before, 5 years ago, let's say, you had to get your ticket, and you could book it, but then you had to queue up then to get your ticket. And in a busy train station, sometimes you had to queue up for like an hour, right? And then you missed the train, and it was just terrible, right? But now it's completely ticketless, right? So you book, and if you're a foreigner, you just use your passport number and your name, obviously, right? And then that's it. You just go to the turnstile machine. You put your passport, it scans it. If you're lucky, the first time it goes. Otherwise, maybe you have to change to another machine or whatever. But you just go through like this. You don't need the ticket. You don't need anything. You can use the passport actually to go through, which is, like, why did it take them so long, right? But anyway, which is now a very big improvement. Now, the negative is that there's a lot more fences. It's crowd control everywhere. And people tell me it was worse during COVID and they already removed like half of it or something, I don't know. But whew, if you don't like to be, to be treated like cattle, this might be a bit of a shock, right? And in some of the stations, it's pretty bad. Like the Human station, which is at the same time a high-speed train station and a metro station, and maybe also will be a light rail station, it seems.
Yes.
So these stations with several things coming up at the same time is just terrible. Anyway, enough about traveling because it's not just that. Face recognition is extremely common, right? You can pay. Actually, it's been a few years already like this with Alipay and so on in the convenience stores, just with your face. Boop. Okay. Gone, cashed out, paid, I can go, right? Even in our office, actually. So we moved a couple of years ago to a nice high-rise commercial building in Shenzhen. And at the bottom, there's a control over the visitors. You have to register, and then with your face, it unlocks basically, right? And then it's the same thing in either that or fingerprint, on the doors. Same thing in Agilian for access control and so on, right? Have you seen face recognition in other places?
Yeah, Shenzhen a lot, Huizhou not so much, but I do think it's not necessarily going to be kept to very rigidly. Certainly not if you're a foreigner and you're looking a bit confused and hot, and I think you might find that they'll just let you in because that definitely happened to me, or let you out. So because of course, if let's say you're visiting your supplier's office, you're not going to be in the face recognition system, so it sort of sees your face and it's just like and doesn't let you in. But there'll be a guy somewhere with a button, and he'll just sort of push it, and you can just go in, maybe. But it's definitely more common for sure.
Yeah, right. Let's talk about restaurants. So, as we mentioned, a lot of them closed, right? Or moved,
yeah, definitely.
but yeah, a lot of them closed. It's been. I was like, oh no, like the Shenzhen I used to like, has all disappeared by now, It's, I was not happy with that. And also in some places I saw that the prices really went up quite a bit, right?
Yes.
And people told me, yeah, because during COVID, fewer people coming, so they had to survive, they had to raise the price on. And then it's China. Prices never come down, do they?
No, Shenzhen has gotten a decent amount more expensive for sure. It's not cheap by any means. I would say that there was always quite a high turnover of small restaurants in Shenzhen anyway. So if you went away for a year or so, you'd find that the little restaurant on the corner that you always used to go to has now changed
Yeah.
into something else, probably like a salon or something. But no
Mm.
doubt COVID killed off a lot of them. That's for sure. I still
Yeah.
think there's quite a few. It's not like the West where we're slowly. I'm not gonna tar everywhere with the same brush, but certainly in the UK, we're sort of slowly homogenizing into like major chains, and that's pretty
Mm.
much all there is. All like the little pubs are closing, and you just get big
Mm.
chains. It's not at that extreme. There's still heaps of small restaurants around,
Oh, sure.
but no
This is the
doubt
trend, right? Mm.
COVID did definitely kill a lot of them. And yes,
Yeah,
it's
true.
it's more expensive than it was. But if you are of the more adventurous persuasion and you're willing to go into sort of the little random Chinese restaurant on the corner rather than, a big fancy one in a nice shopping mall,
Mm.
you could probably still get reasonably cheap food that's good.
Yeah, of course, we still have some of that. Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
Did you see? Did you see this new habit? Or I know not that new, but it's really mainstream now. 5, 6, 10 people sit around a table. They all scan the QR code and they all order directly from their phones. And then one of them says, "I'm going to be picking the bill."
Ah,
Whereas before
yes.
it was everybody has the big printed menu and only one for the table always. And then you have to kind of organize and say, okay, let's order one of these. Okay, what about that? And all trying to look at the same menu.
Yes, and actually this could be quite challenging for foreign visitors because a lot of the time you go to the restaurant, sit down at the table, and there's just a QR code on the table.
Right,
So you
right.
got to go scan that QR code on your phone, and then it'll bring up the menu on your phone, right? Now, is the menu going to be in English? Probably not. Can you
Mm,
pay in cash? Maybe, but it's going to be more difficult because what would happen is, yeah, basically one person will just take control of it and they'll just pay it straight away on, Alipay or whatever online payment
mm,
system they're using. Well, not straight away, they'll pay it afterwards, and then it's all done via phone. So yeah, I think a
mm.
lot of the time you don't see menus anymore.
Yeah, right, right, right. Yeah, another topic is LinkedIn.
Mm,
Is so it used to be totally open in China, and like no difference between say Hong Kong and Shenzhen using LinkedIn. Then they stopped having their content, sharing and everything, and they tried to reposition it on the Chinese market as just a way to find jobs and nothing else. And then
mm,
finally these days they're completely closing it in China, right? So
mm,
you asked me 5, 10 years ago, I would already say, yeah, marketing, doing online marketing from within China is a pain. Even keeping
mm,
up with what's going on outside is a pain, and
mm,
communicating with family and so on, is a pain, right? And this
mm.
is, well, basically not much change, right? Just one more major network that's um that's closed. Now at least TikTok
Yeah.
is has gone mainstream and is open, right? But
Mm,
it's just crap. I would never use that stuff.
mm. Well, I think
Um,
I think from the listener's perspective as well, everybody's probably well versed in the fact that it's really difficult to use Western internet in China. So
mm,
before you leave your country and you're visiting China, you're going to need to figure out a way to access the internet if you're relying on, let's say, using Google Drive to work on some documents with your colleagues who are
mm,
back wherever you're from or something like that. You're going to need to sort that out before you leave, because if you leave it till you're in China, you're going to struggle. I would
yeah,
say that as well, from a communication perspective, even if we're not talking about paying for stuff in China, which we can actually go on to for our next point, I guess, WeChat is going to be helpful for you because you can communicate very easily. You can call people. It's what everybody uses. Very kind of similar to WhatsApp in terms of if you're just using it to communicate a message, it's similar to WhatsApp. or Facebook Messenger. And of course, you can use that in China. So I would say, if you're going to be meeting Chinese colleagues or Chinese suppliers, totally get yourself a WeChat account set up, and that's going to be most helpful.
Right. And it is ranked pretty much worst for information security. So,
well, yeah,
don't exchange, any secrets on that platform and
right,
expect that
yes,
it could come out and be read by everybody. Also, I would
sure.
remind people WeChat is a personal medium first, just like, let's say, Facebook Messenger, right?
Mm.
And there's a WeChat Plus or Business or whatever they call it. There's also something from from Alibaba called DingTalk that are professional social networks, type of like messaging and so on. Not really social network, but something like WhatsApp, but more professional for China, where the company sort of owns everything, and the person leaves, and you can still see what's in the account,
Yeah.
and things don't get like you know erased suddenly, just like in WeChat. So really, WeChat is something that should be handled carefully. But yeah, you were mentioning how to pay, right? So without let's say a digital wallet, it is an enormous pain in the neck, right? To go around
Yeah.
and pay.
Well, you can use a foreign card in China, right?
Mm,
Probably. Sometimes not, but usually people won't have a fit if you pull out a Visa or a MasterCard. So if you've got an international card that's not going to cost you a fortune, you could probably pay for some stuff by card. But for smaller purchases, so if you're going into a convenience store, you're taking a taxi, something like that, they are going to expect you to pay by scanning a QR code and
mm,
using Alipay, for example, right? But the problem is you got to set that up in your country before you come to China, which has caused me a spot of bother this time. So I've been
mm,
going around in Shenzhen trying to pay in cash, and people are looking at
mm.
me like I've gone mad. They're like, "Who is this old man? Why is he trying to pay cash? What is he talking about? Obviously, we
Right.
do not have any change. Just get rid of him." And people have turned me down. They're like, "No, we're not taking your
Yeah.
cash." So the online payment system, right? Basically, you connect your bank account to one of the Chinese apps, and when you need to pay for something, you scan the QR code that they give you, and then you just type in whatever you're paying. So let's say, 14 RMB, right? You type it
Mm,
in, you press pay, it comes up on their system and it just says paid 14 RMB, and then you walk away. And those QR codes appear everywhere. And if you're in China, you're going to see QR codes everywhere. A lot of the time, they're now circular, by the way. You've probably noticed this, Renaud, right?
what do you mean circular?
It's like a round circle with the little dots inside
Oh,
it,
yeah,
like
yeah, 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 yeah. Right,
sunburst,
right,
but they don't look like square QR code, like blocky ones
right,
anymore, a lot of the time. So, but you're going to see
right.
those everywhere. So if you don't set that up before you come to China, right, you've kind of got two options. You can either try to pay with your foreign card, or you can try to pay with cash.
Mm,
It's debatable whether they're even going to take cash, certainly in Shenzhen at least. So there are ways to
mm,
do it, but you need to register when you're in your country. So you download the app, you connect your bank account to it. You probably have to confirm your ID with them. They send you a verification code to your phone number. Once you've put that in, it should be connected. And then once you get to China, I'm assuming you're not going to use your Western phone number. So even if you get a Chinese SIM card, or maybe you buy a SIM card at the airport in Hong Kong that works while you're in China, okay, good choice, I
mm.
guess. You can still use the function because you've already set it up. But if you wait until you're in China, you can't do it because you can't get the verification code, which is sent to your foreign phone number, which you're not using in China, which is exactly what's happened in my case. So we're learning every day. I'll set it up for next time. But yeah, that's basically how everyone pays for everything now. So if you come thinking, hey, I've got cash, it's going to be fine. It's probably not going to be fine in many cases.
Right. Yeah. So payments, yeah, you got to go digital.
Yes.
That's clear. And now let's get to the next, actually the last topic is about all the online delivery. It's just enormous. I don't think it's anywhere close to as developed as in China, anywhere in the world.
No.
Did you see the mass of people just going around for deliveries?
Yeah.
It's astounding.
Enormous. And it can be
Yeah.
anything. It can be anything. While I was in the hotel in Shenzhen, we ordered some stuff at, I don't know, it was pretty late. It was maybe like midnight or something like that. No problem. Just go on the app, type in what you want. Some guy comes over on the e-bike with the stuff, goes to the hotel. And also, there's a robot in the foyer of the hotel. So he opens up the robot, puts the stuff inside. The robot drives up, it goes into the elevator, comes up to your room, rings the doorbell, and then it's like, hey, open me up, I've got your stuff. You take the stuff out, and the robot just goes away. And so it's a completely humanless transaction.
Right. From your mobile phone, from like Meituan or whatever, one of these apps, or within which app actually you can order, right? And you get it all. Yeah, that's crazy. So this is actually a problem for like hiring operator level people, because they go work in a factory and I don't know, an assembly job or a machining job, semi-skilled, let's say, maybe they make 6,000, but they have to work like 12 hours a day, very often, 6 days a week and so on. And they have to, it's very regimented. They have to follow, a certain discipline, etc., etc. They're a delivery guy. They're on their own. They make 10,000 RMB a month. 8, 9, 10,000 is not unheard of at all. So they actually earn more money. They're on their little e-bike. They're pretty free. They take the jobs they want, and they're out there going around, and it's different jobs every time, going to different places, and they prefer it. And what someone in the office told me, it's funny because they come to an office and they will have sort of a deal with the cleaning lady where the last, it's not the last mile, maybe they do the last mile, minus the last 20 meters. The last 20 meters are done by the cleaning lady. Goes up to the 5th floor, delivers this, and then goes up to the 20th floor, delivers that, and then wait for the next guy to come. And they kind of share the money. It's like subcontract service, of the delivery. But this is a huge thing. And the amount of single-use plastic and cardboard and all the packaging materials is also astounding.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some countries like France, like UK, that are really cutting on it. The EU with their new packaging and packaging waste, I believe it's a directive, not a regulation, but packaging and packaging waste are also gearing up to cut down on that pretty in a pretty strict manner. And in China, it's like totally unbridled. There's no limit. And you order something that's the size of a finger, and you get a package that's 20 times more voluminous. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. I don't know how long it's going to last.
That's an Asian thing, though. All over Asia, it's kind of like that. I don't think even Japan. Like when I went to Japan, I was quite surprised by the amount of packaging you get, and I didn't expect it because Japan is so sort of conscientious about everything, and yet it was sort of like plastic central. It was crazy, but yeah, I mean, ecologically, it's not good, and of course, if you're getting everything delivered and it's coming in a bunch of plastic packaging and a plastic bag which is tied up and all of that, that is not the same as going to the supermarket yourself, buying your stuff, chucking it in a multiple use bag or a a jute bag or whatever, right, which is reusable. And so it is a lot. What I would say is that the rubbish bins in China are now quite categorized. So it's very, very common to see different bins for, plastics, for food waste, for cardboards. And, with China, there's a gang of people at the bottom of each building sorting through everything and making sure that all the stuff goes into the right bins. How well it's all recycled, Who knows? But it appears that they are trying to categorize the different waste, so they must be doing something
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah, the easy ones, like the plastics with number one, two, three, four. Yeah, all
Yeah.
of these are certainly recycled. The metals, yeah, I mean, this is a
Mm,
big business in China, definitely. But there's a
mm,
lot of things I'm pretty sure still goes to landfill,
mm. Oh yeah.
burn and
Yeah,
so
for
on.
sure.
Yeah.
For
And
sure.
you were talking about supermarkets. So same thing now from an app, you buy everything. You do your shopping from an app more and more. So the
Yeah.
traditional supermarkets are seeing, fewer people coming in. They're cutting down
Mm,
on the personal, and they have less, a lower activity, but they need to develop an online delivery approach. So you
yeah.
have these sort of supermarkets that are basically warehouses just for
Mm,
online delivery in each populated neighborhood. And this
yeah.
is taking away a lot from the supermarkets. So it's
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
these
I can
developments are just
confirm that.
a bit weird,
Mm.
let's say.
I think from a what is China like, right? I think what struck me in Shenzhen is that it appears that people seem to be spending a lot more time inside because yeah, okay, it has been quite hot recently, to be fair, but they've built so many huge malls everywhere.
Yeah.
Because in the old days, when there was just the sort of couple of metro lines that you were talking about, there were probably three, four, five major malls in Shenzhen that everybody knew about, right? And they were like the
Yeah.
big famous places. Now there's probably 100. There's just massive, massive malls everywhere, and they are crammed with people. Everybody's in there eating, drinking, chilling out, literally because they're air conditioned.
Mm.
And I kind of feel like, yeah, everybody's just in malls now. That feels different to me.
Yeah, true. Right. Yeah, a long time when it was just like, oh, there's the Mixi and there's the whatever,
Mm,
Holiday Plaza and Coco Park and Central Walk and
yeah.
that's it.
King Glory
That's
in Lohu.
right. Yeah, right. There are just a few that are really modern and
Yeah.
relatively upscale, and now
Mm,
they've just multiplied and multiplied and multiplied. It is
yeah.
nuts.
Yeah. So it's all about malls. So if you want to go get some good food and good drinks and things like that, yeah, go check out the big local mall because it's bound to have some good stuff. Maybe one more
Mm.
point we can cover
Mhm.
if I may. If you go on LinkedIn, you're going to see so many articles, especially at the moment, and we're recording middle of June, right?
Mm.
Saying, oh, the West and China are diverging, the relationship is over, you've got to get out of China, etc., etc. It's kind of negative. And we know
Mhm.
that China is never going to be always portrayed very positively in Western media. Okay, I get it. I don't think, looking at the business environment here, that's entirely true because people are coming to China, they're setting up businesses, they're opening bank accounts. It is happening, it can happen, it's still quite accessible. So I don't think the business
Right.
environment is as hostile to foreigners as it may be being portrayed in the media.
Yeah, well, I mean, some foreigners that we know are feeling that too on the ground. So
Mm.
it's not totally unfounded, but
No.
there's sort of an ebb and flow. There's cycles, right? During COVID, it was primarily very political, and basically nobody cares about your freedom, and who
Mm.
cares? Just get out if you don't want to be here. This is the way we
Yeah.
do it, right? Nobody really cared about the economy, and now they're waking up and they're like, "Oh, our economy is actually, pretty soft. That's not good. We need to do something." So these days they're going to try to be a bit nicer, a bit more welcoming, and then who
Mm.
knows later, right? So this is also what's pretty unpleasant to foreign investors and foreign, and company managers and so on. I understand that. Um, that's China, and that's China of 2023. But
Mm.
there's also some good sides. What I mean is that the government is actually, enforcing the laws better. So, okay, that's bad if you're earning a high salary and, your company has to pay high taxes and all these kind of things,
Mm.
because this is different from 20 years ago. Yeah, that's true.
Mm.
Um, I mean, on the other hand, yeah, it's also much harder to hire foreigners now because China
Yes.
is way less attractive. So let's say that the soft power, of China in that sense is very, very weak, right? It doesn't have a good image generally, and that actually
Yeah.
is having an impact on how good of a destination it is for running a business anyway. So
Mm.
these are the main problems, but you know, people are people. You can find some great individuals. Obviously, you can work with a network of very good Chinese people, right? And very
Mm.
good manufacturers and very good service providers and so on. Things still happen very fast. This there's a
Mm.
there's a lot of a can-do attitude if you're looking for the right people. So if you like that, well, that was great in 2010, in 2015, and still would be great in 2025, right?
Yes.
And it's an enormous market, a lot of
Yeah.
money flowing around. That
Mm.
is actually more and more true, right? Even though the economy obviously is maturing a bit and is changing, right? So depending on the business you're in, it might be getting better and better as an
Mm.
opportunity, or worse and
Mm.
worse, right?
Yeah.
Um, Things have been changing a lot, that's for sure.
Yeah. So I hope that the different topics that we've sort of been going around in this episode give you a bit of a flavor for some of the changes that we've seen. And hopefully you'll see if you're going to be planning on visiting China soon to go see your suppliers or even to visit us,
Mm,
even to visit
yeah.
Sofeast as well. So if you're listening and you're thinking, well, I do have some questions about this. I'm a bit stumped on, you know, how do I get into China? What sort of things do I have to do to prepare, etc. Get in touch. We'll try and answer if we can. But what I would say is it's really not that hard to visit China now as a visitor. It's not like it was during COVID at all. It's really, really pretty simple.
All right. I think we covered all the points that we had
Yeah,
prepared.
absolutely. So another good one there, Renaud. Thanks for that. Enjoyed your observations today, and we will be back next week as normal. Thanks again for listening to this podcast brought to you by the Sofeast Group. We're on a mission to provide you with everything you need to manufacture effectively in Asia, including inspections, auditing, new product development support, contract manufacturing, 3PL warehousing and fulfillment, and much, much more across Asia's key manufacturing areas. Visit us at sofeast.com, that's SOFEAST.com, to learn more and get help. If you've enjoyed the podcast today, please do rate, review and share because it will really help others discover us too.